Greetings. In the shifting sands of Kenyan politics, very few figures command as much historical weight and current controversy as a walking constitution himself, Senior Counsel James Agri Bob Orengo, the Siaya senator, who despite having his hands full serving Siaya residents, has thrown his heart into national politics. And we're having this conversation at a time when his party, ODM, seems hell-bent on dropping the opposition tug and getting a seat at the government table. We'll be canvassing matters to do with national politics, even as we look at his development track record in Siaya County. Senior Counsel Orengo, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure having you here.
Asante sana. And we're having this conversation when so much is happening. And I'd like to start with matters that are playing out in the national stage. Because, Governor, you argue that your party, the Orange Democratic Movement, is actually being operated from State House. But critics say the late party leader, Raila Odinga, left the party in the broad-based government. And I might sound as a devil's advocate, but it seems that they're hell-bent on starting the negotiations with the broad-based partners, UDA. So perhaps the first question would be, why is it wrong for ODM to try and get political power, as they refer to it, if it will champion the interests of the people? Why are you against that move?
I'm against it because ODM is the largest party in the Republic. If you look at its footprints, it is all over the country, in every region. And for a large party to become a junior partner of a party which is diminished, I'm saying UDA is diminished because it has lost its foundational support in the central Kenya region quite substantially. So if you take a count, a political count of membership even in parliament, of members of parliament who are still loyal to UDA, as opposed to those who are loyal to ODM. ODM is still the larger party. Secondly, UDA was our rival, major rival, if you like, in the last general elections. We were driving different blueprints, different agenda, and until we do an audit to determine whether we share the same values and principles, I do not think it would be the right thing for ODM to enter into a coalition where it is a junior partner. And I've said consistently that if ODM makes that mistake, then the likelihood is that ODM will diminish. It will become a small party. It may even be confined to be a small party around the Lake region.
So those are the risks that are on the table. And I'm pretty sure the ODM party leadership is not oblivious to some of these challenges. And we've had them speak of bare minimums, be it the deputy president's position, be it 50-50 in that pre-election agreement or the talks that are supposed to happen before the 2027 general election. Is this too little? Is ODM shooting below its weight?
Those are roadside pronouncements. They're not serious positions. If they were serious, there should have been a debate, internal debate within the party. And then we agree on the asks on our part if you're going to enter into an arrangement with the UDA. And you've seen some of our leaders in ODM have been shifting goals. There's a time when they were saying, we are not even going for the deputy president. And if you're talking about 50-50, UDA is already in coalition with other parties. It has swallowed some parties like ANC. UDM is there, Ford Kenya is there, Power from the Coast is there. So when you're talking 50-50, I think that's something that is said on the roadside to impress the members of the public and some of the members of ODM. But if UDA was serious and President Ruto was serious, with these pronouncements coming from ODM, he would have told us as ODM that this is the best offer I can give you. But of course, he's not going to make that mistake because he's got Kindiki on the line, he's got Mudavadi on the line, and he's got Wetangula on the line, and many other considerations for him to consider. And of course, he's going to look at the demographics. Where is he likely to get most of the votes? So it's not as simple as making pronouncements to please the public or members of the ODM. What is important is by now they should have a document discussed internally within the party and telling the party members this is our basic minimum in our discussions with the UDA.
Okay, interesting. You've talked about a document, and I'd like us to canvass the progress from your point of view in regards to the 10-point MOU that was signed between ODM and UDA. There was talk of March 7th being the deadline for implementation, even though we've had the ODM party chair, Gladys Wanga, saying that this agenda has no expiry date. As a matter of fact, we expect the joint committee, the joint parliamentary PG from UDA and ODM to be updated on the process so far. They call it a status report on the implementation led by Agnes Zani-led committee. What do you make of the progress in terms of implementation? Do you view March 7th as the deadline or simply a date where we can get a status report? Is the working relationship between UDA and ODM simply based on the implementation of this 10-point agenda?
No. There's an end date, and make no mistake. This MOU was not about ODM and UDA. If you look at the 10-point agenda, it is about Kenya and the people of Kenya. And if you look at that document, the springboard was the Gen Z movement. The context in which it was being entered into was to consider very seriously the issues that were being raised by Gen Z. But if you take account of some of the issues which are on the MOU, and by the way, if you look at the MOU, it talks about actualization of quite a number of those agenda points. Actualization now, not tomorrow, now. And if you take some of them fast and look at them, whether they've been achieved, there are the issues of abductions, they continue. There is the issues of extrajudicial killing, they are continuing. There's the issue of compensation, where there's a lame excuse that there's no budget. I think that is a very lame excuse. Previously, it was the courts. And it is not just about compensation, it's a question of justice. How many successful prosecutions have been undertaken 2 years down the line of those who were killed during the Gen Z demonstrations? Take the issue of debt. Instead of the debt coming down, we are being told that in 3 years, our debt, Kenya will be a debt at about a figure of about 16 trillion. I mean, that is not a small figure to talk about. If you take issues like, the gender issue, about cost of living, and I can go on and on and on and on, and the document is there. A lot has not been achieved. And if it was achieved, it would have been self-evident. There's also issues about employment. I mean, our people are dying in Ukraine and Russia. They're going there because, they don't have jobs here. It's not like they want to participate in a foreign war and become mercenaries. And the president one time talked about having created millions of jobs outside Kenya for Kenyans, including in Germany. And if I remember well, the German government refuted that pronouncement. So this 10-point agenda, if it had been achieved, it would have been self-evident. We don't need an audit. We don't need a review about cost of living. Just ask an ordinary man on the street, an ordinary woman on the street, is life better now or is getting worse? And I think the answer will come in floods like the floods we had yesterday.
Okay. So facts is stubborn. If the implementation had been done, as you've said, it would speak for itself. But now, since things are moving, we expect that parliamentary group meeting to be updated on the implementation. They'll get a status report. Is the working relationship between UDA and ODM as dead as a dodo due to the lack of implementation of this 10-point MOU?
I think it's dead as a dodo, but there are brokers, politicians who are transactional. They would want it to appear as if there is something happening. And they'll continue to spread the propaganda that the 10-point agenda is working. Because without it, if it's pronounced dead, then they'll find it very difficult to get the largesse they're getting from the state.
So if this broad-based arrangement continues, where does that leave Linda Mananchi faction? Do you officially bolt and register a new political party? Do you stay within and fight a civil war? What's the next step?
You know, the broad-based government is based on nothing. There's no agreement. There's nothing Raila signed, like he signed the MOU, that there's an arrangement in which ODM is participating in broad-based government. This was a measure taken by Raila to make sure that unity in the party was maintained, so that those who had negotiated for themselves to go into government may not be seen to be tearing the party apart. But the truth of the matter, and he has been told many times, and Raila himself talked about it, that these individuals actually negotiated positions for themselves. Mm-hmm. And they made it very clear that if they didn't get the support of the party, they will still go ahead and occupy those positions. But what I am saying is that, the broad-based government has no instrument. It has no legal foundation. What is there is that in Parliament, ODM is part of the minority in Parliament. It is leading in accordance with the standing orders, the Constitution, and the law. The ODM is the minority party, a leader in both Parliament, in National Assembly, and the Senate. That is an actual legal and constitutional position. And it cannot be said that you're both in government and in the minority in Parliament, where you are carrying out oversight roles against the executive, against the government of the day. And there are critical committees, oversight committees, including the Public Accounts Committee, both in the Senate and in the National Assembly, which can only be chaired by those who are in the minority. It cannot be chaired by a party in government. So I think we are living the lie.
So when you say the way forward is not to destroy what Raila Odinga created.
Yes.
He created this broad-based government. He was part and parcel of it. Where does that leave Linda Mananchi?
He did not create a broad-based government. Oh. Yeah. Any government which is serious must have certain instruments upon which it can be judged. And the only basis upon which political parties can be in government working together or in opposition working together is by some agreement, and if it is an agreement made by the political parties, is registered by the register of political parties. There's nothing like that. Okay. So we are pleasing ourselves. We are living the lie. And the lie, like gov't said many times, becomes the truth. Unfortunately, as you say, facts are very, very stubborn.
So if the pre-election agreement goes forward, because the party honchos seem determined to make it a reality, where does that leave Linda Mananchi?
Linda Mananchi we will continue to fight for the soul of the party.
From within ODM?
From within ODM. And the leadership of the ODM, there's a contest there, whether we have a proper leadership in place, looking at the constitution of the party. So let nobody be deluded or lied to that we are moving out of the party. We are part of ODM. The position of Secretary General, which is a central position of the party, is occupied by Edwin Sifuna. The position of deputy party leader, and quite an effective deputy party leader, is occupied by my friend Godfrey Osossi. Yeah, so we are Linda Mananchi in terms of having a caucus within the party which believes in the soul of the party, which believes on the principles and values of the party.
Okay, and we'll get to the agenda of Linda Mwananchi, because that's a question that has come up time and time again. Since you've mentioned the matter to do with the battle for the SG position within the party, I'd like to bring to focus the move by the party to say that Sifuna bypassed the internal dispute resolution by going to court in terms of appealing that decision to remove him. As a senior counsel, what's your take on an individual who the party says, you know, you jumped the gun, and legally or illegally, and that is it that this internal dispute resolution mechanism is simply a kangaroo court designed to, you know, crack down and purge on dissent? What's your view on the progress?
Well, there was a complaint made to the party to process the complaint in terms with the internal dispute resolution as set out in the party instruments. That's the only basis and foundation upon which a matter was taken to the tribunal. And the tribunal could not have given an order ex parte until on the face of it there was evidence to show that there had been an internal, dispute resolution process which had been exhausted. And as we speak now, we have an order of the tribunal which simply states that Sifuna is still the Secretary General of the party. So he didn't jump the gun. It is the other, the side opposite that continues to violate the constitution of the party. For example, they have just convened the extraordinary session of the National Delegates Convention. The procedure is well set. And one of them, if I can just mention one of them, is that the notice must be given by the Secretary General. It's mandatory. If it is an ordinary meeting of the National Delegates Convention, then there's a provision that by resolution of the National Executive Committee, if there's a failure or the Secretary General fails to give the notice, then that responsibility can be given to somebody else. But they're living the lie. You've seen in the public rallies, everywhere they're going, they're saying Catherine Omanyo is the acting Secretary General. But when she signs legal documents, she signs as Deputy Secretary General.
Interesting. There's an NDC coming up, as you've mentioned. They've scheduled it for 27th of March.
Yes.
You've definitely poked holes into the legality of that particular meeting. What if it goes on? Because it seems politically they're in tune with making this changes a reality when it comes to giving the go-ahead to negotiate with UDA and Kenya Kwanza government, perhaps substantiating this party changes, the party leadership changes that have been made. What next for James Orengo?
I don't want, first of all, to talk about abstractions or an abstract situation. I mean, they have convened illegally the National Delegates Convention, an extraordinary session of the convention. Whether it will take place or not, it will be subject of a matter of legal determination. And I can assure you there are many other issues upon which we can rely on to ensure that that National Delegates Convention does not take place. Now, one of the things is, and our Constitution and the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya requires political parties to promote internal party democracy. Parties must be run on the basis of democratic principles. And particularly a party which is funded by the state, it must be seen to be upholding the Constitution and the democratic principles of the Republic. And it is a Constitution which says they must uphold democratic principles. And what have they done? Even at that National Delegates Convention, the agenda does not seem to state that there's going to be an election. They're saying that there's going to be an endorsement of the legal decisions of the National Executive Council, the National Governing Council, and the Central Committee of imposing leadership on the party members. Yet the Constitution says those persons must be elected by the appropriate organ of the party, which is the National Delegates Convention. So what is going to happen in that convention if it takes place is that people are going to be called upon not to elect, but whether they are approving the decisions of the junior organs of the party, including the National Executive Committee.
Okay, so I assume asking you if you'll be attending would be involving yourself with an illegality from your point of view.
If it is properly convened, I have a duty as a member of ODM to attend.
Okay, let's see how the cookie crumbles without too much assumptions.
Yes.
What's the future of ODM from where you sit? There's some who say that the party, the spirit of the party, might have passed on with the late Baba. Others have branded your camp as rebels, and they actually say, you can shape up or shape out. Knowing consultation might actually bring concurrence, have the battle lines been drawn? Is dialogue still an option to ensure that ODM and the ideals it stands for last the test of time?
I think dialogue must always be, pursued, and I can tell you, at some point, there were some meetings which were held with the purpose of trying to, ensuring that the party remained together. But the condition was that the starting point was to reverse the illegal decision that was made of removing Edwin Sifuna as Secretary General and postponing the National Executive Council that took place in Mombasa, so that an enabling environment for dialogue would be created. But I can tell you, at the end of the day, it does not matter who takes the party if it is only a shell that remains in essence, because that's what is going to happen. But I think the spirit of the party lives and lives, within us who are trying to ensure that the legacy of Raila Odinga is defended, is protected, and the party as founded on social democratic principles, and and a party which believes in the Bill of Rights and also believes in the constitutional arrangements which governs the affairs of the Republic, that those must be kept and adhered to. With that belief and commitment, I can tell you where the party goes, watch this space. I think, we still got quite a lot of ground to cover in the next 2, 3, 4 months.
Okay. What are the prospects of uniting with the united opposition? We've had political talk, political chatter about, we have a united goal to make Ruto a one-term president, and you've been vocal about that. Some say this could lead to a convergence of thoughts and, political ambitions, but others say, even if the intention is not to split the vote come 2027 general election, there are people who are persona non grata that we cannot work with. If Linda Mananchi joins forces with the united opposition, and some of these individuals were on record saying they're putting traps for the late party leader when it comes to perhaps working with the current government, what's your take on working with the united opposition?
I think it's still premature to talk about working with the united opposition.
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of ground to cover.
But is it a possibility?
I don't want to talk about the possibility because I think we still got a lot of ground to cover in order to talk about possibility of working with the united opposition. And it must be based on looking at our fundamental principles and what the united opposition is saying. But I must say, as a matter of fact, all that was said about traps and all, the person who took away the presidency from Raila Odinga is President William Ruto, and who called him all the names, who said that he's going to make sure he goes back to Bondo in a wheelbarrow. If there's anybody talking about who should be talking to or who should be working with, there should be no double standards. They should tell me why in any circumstances we should be working with President William Ruto.
You say there's a lot of ground to cover. Linda Mwananchi, I think, is heading to Ukambani this weekend, if I'm not wrong. What's the end goal? For those who question the agenda, at the end of the day, what exactly do you have in mind?
I think we postponed our program until the end of the Ramadan.
Okay.
The meeting tomorrow is a meeting in which members of Linda Mwananchi, some are going to participate, and there was a caucus of members of parliament that was created much earlier, and they had these functions, including Harambes, in their constituencies. You remember even people like Wamuchomba was there. So we support that event tomorrow. But our rallies and public events are going to resume after Ramadan. And next week, we are going to announce our program and give out a timetable.
And what's the end goal?
The end goal for us is to recapture the soul of the party, to get the party back on its feet, looking at the party principles, foundation principles, and that the party of Raila should not be swallowed. There should be no hostile takeover of ODM. And ODM should remain a national and not an ethnic or tribal or ethnic party. Those are the things that are driving us.
Okay.
But we're still working as ODM. And by the way, when you're talking about rebels, Sifuna is the Secretary General of the party. And he is the holder of a custodian of documents, instruments, and Ososi is the deputy party leader. So I think This Linda Mananchi, Linda ground, these are caucuses, but who wins ultimately? I think in another 4 or 5 months, we're going to see what happens.
Okay, let's see how it crumbles. Linda Mwananchi, the claims of sabotage, we just saw this week that there was a formal bid, an application to register the Linda Mwananchi campaign slogan at the Register of Political Parties. What do you make of that move? Is it being sabotaged? And if it's truly citizen-led, as you say, how comes it's a little bit hard to bypass some of these state roadblocks that have been put?
You know, we don't want to form a party. We're not forming a party. So that move was, you know, completely outside our ambit. I think somebody was trying to ensure that either he registers a party, and when somebody wants to operate as Linda Mwananchi, he puts it on auction. But it could be even the state, you know, to try and limit future possibilities. But they are going where we are not going. As far as we're concerned, we are members of ODM, and we will stick to ODM.
Interesting. I'd like to bring in a sensitive issue. You've been on record talking about the passing on of the late Raila Odinga. Some might say you're casting aspersions. Some might say you're politicizing the death of the late Raila Odinga. So putting speculation aside, because if this wasn't a ploy to get sympathy votes, what exactly does James Agribo Orengo know that Kenyans don't know?
I think there will be a better time, and there will be legal processes, if it's required, to advance what I've been saying further. But I believe for now I've said enough of it. And, you know, your guess is as good as mine, whether or not Raila, you know, died on natural causes. Your guess is as good as mine. But I've taken the position.
Do you have faith in investigations led by the state to look into this matter?
Well, you know, this must be interstate. I mean, it's not just the Kenyan government which would be involved. Even the Indian government may have to be involved. Indian authorities may have to be involved. But so far, I think I've said enough, but I have not said the last word. I'll continue where necessary to talk about this issue.
And to those who see this as a sensitive subject, that you might be politicizing it, how do you calm the waters that are being stirred through your statements?
I cannot calm the waters. It's something which has happened. And in any case, in any republic where, you know, there's accountability about the health of leaders, you know, there must be some accountability, and it cannot just go like that. That's why, you know, in democracies, mature democracies, senior leaders, even where there are monarchs, like King Charles the other time, you know, had to give a record of his health record. And if anything happened to a leader in a republic or in a country where there's accountability, such things should be questioned. The public need to know. And I think let's leave it there and see what comes out of it at the end.
The passing on of Raila Odinga didn't just leave a gap in ODM, but others look at it as a gap in the kingpinship in Luo Nyanza. There have been talks about some leaders from that region posturing themselves to take over as the political leaders in that particular region. You're one of the senior most leaders from the larger Luo Nyanza region. What do you make of the clamor around succeeding Raila Odinga as a Luo Nyanza kingpin?
I think there's a much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
there was never really such a kingpin, but there's something much about Raila's, clout in the Republic, and more particularly in Luo land. It was not an elective position. There was no coronation. There was never a time I saw Raila being coronated as a Luo kingpin. And I remember one of the reasons why Jaramogi Oginga Odinga elected to work with me, and work with me very closely, was when there was a time in the National Assembly where there was a debate and there was constant reference to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga as a Luo kingpin, a Luo leader, and I denounced those who were making those pronouncements. I said that the Luo as a community have never had royalty or kingship. We have never had paramount chiefs, so to speak. Is something that came from the colonial government. So these kingpins, they're neither here or there because they're not elected positions. But naturally, you may find somebody who has got following in certain areas, certain regions. But in the current circumstances in Kenya, the talk about kingpins is to continue to destroy the kind of nation that we want to build on the basis of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. We want a new Kenyan man. We need a new republic where it does not matter where somebody comes from. So this talk about kingpins drives away, even in elections, the considerations of policies, ideology, agenda, that once you have a kingpin, then that kingpin will determine the political decisions that you make. I think that is feudal, that is backward, and that is primitive.
Interesting. But aren't you arguing from an idealist point of view? Reality on the ground sort of proves otherwise, that these political formations are at times, circulate around an individual who might have the gravitas of a kingpin.
Then how do you explain why Raila formed the strongest party in Western region? By numbers, by votes, presidential, by constituencies. How would you reason, if it's just a kingpin, that he will get the majority of the votes in the coast? How would that logic work if in all the major cities in the Republic of Kenya, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nairobi, all included, that Raila will be getting a majority of the votes in those cities? So I think let's look at a better Kenya for the future, at least for those who want to go to Singapore. Part of the DA will require us to detribalize our politics instead of making, these backward considerations as being a basis of our election.
I'd like to talk about this Singapore issue, since you've just brought it up, because President William Ruto promises a Singapore-like transformation, perhaps through various structures, the National Infrastructure Fund being one of them. You've seen many dreams in your over 40 years in politics. Is this a genuine building block when you look at the Singapore dream, or it's, an expensive version of mere rhetoric?
I think it's mere rhetoric, and nature seemed to respond very brutally to President Ruto about Kenya's pathway to Singapore. Just rains overnight demonstrated, including our capital city, that the journey to Singapore is a very, very long journey. I think we need to fix Kenya, and Kenya is unique. And if you talk about Singapore, why don't we talk about South Korea? Why doesn't South Korea use Singapore as a template. Each country has a pathway towards prosperity. And there are so many things, if you put Singapore and Kenya together or juxtapose what works in Singapore and what works in Kenya, quite different and separate, fundamentals. So I think that very idea is wrong, very, very wrong. Singapore is a small island state, but which got its fundamentals right. Kenya is a large country, is not urbanized as Singapore is. So I think that dream is a dream that may end up in a nightmare.
President William Ruto has hit the ground running on top of sunroofs, meet the people tours, and one message seems to be repeated time and time again, that his development track record will speak for itself. This is what he'll sell to Kenyans and perhaps will guarantee him
But
a
he's
second
speaking for
term.
himself when he's on rooftop every day, I mean, you're saying he's everywhere, rallies everywhere. Roosevelt, who was president of the United States for nearly four terms, did a lot of things from wheelchair. He didn't have to be all over, there's one time I compared President Moi to President Sadat of Egypt. And now I can compare President Ruto to the same President Sadat. That he was happier, the people used to say of Sadat, he was happier when he was out there with the crowds, and he would never really think he was president until there was all this protocol and parades and rallies. So I think Kenyans are going to make a judgment, and I think that judgment may not be as good as he thinks or as we may probably think.
Okay. I'd like to talk about the goon culture, matters to do with political intolerance, because even as you resume your Linda Mananchi tours after Ramadan, this is a reality that you have to face, bearing in mind a couple of lives have been lost in the past Linda Mananchi tours. According to the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Kipchumba Murkomen, he said that parts of this country actually require leaders to hire gangs to attend functions. And as a veteran of politics in Kenya, is goonism an unfortunate necessity of political survival, of political relevance? Because he hints that politics and goonism go hand in hand.
It cannot be. It cannot be. I remember there was a time when if we wanted to have a demonstration, I would simply just go to Gikomba or Nyamakima and start, talking to people. In fact, a lot of demonstrations we used to start at Nyamakima. You go there, you talk to the people there, and you walk your way to the CBD without interference. And if there's an interference, it would be the police. It is towards the tail end of Moi's rule that he also had something called Jeshi Lamze, that the use of which led to terrible consequences, like the beating of Reverend Joya near the Holy Basilica. But look at it. I mean, where does this happen? In Haiti. That's when you had Tonton Macoute, where the state surrendered its monopoly of violence and arms, to a militia. That's how Papa Doc, came about controlling Haiti. And there are some other countries which have been like that, where goonism has been allowed to prosper. Now, in places where goons successfully manage to stop or interfere with rallies, it is always with the participation of the state. And the state when it does that, then what comes out is state terror, because once the state relinquishes, uses a use of force that is allowed under the Constitution and controlled by the law, and resort to using militias, then we cannot be a modern democratic state.
Well, let's hope there won't be any more loss of lives and property. One life is too many, as they say. As we finalize with matters ODM, you've been on record questioning the political acumen of the party leader, Dr. Oburu Oginga. The legality of his position aside, you mentioned that, he's never been at the political forefront, let alone tasting tear gas. So from Orengo's point of view, as a seasoned politician, as a seasoned member of ODM, who would you rather have in the driving seat of the party? Who will uphold the ideals?
I think that the thing to do is to leave it to the party membership and to the organs of the party, and that would include the Nation Delegates Convention. They would determine the leadership if given a chance. And I'm sure they would be able to, elect somebody who would be able to, drive the party along the path that Raila had set and established.
And who might that be, yourself?
I mean, there are many people in Nyanza, in Western Kenya, in the coast. They're all over. They're all over. Myself included, if you want to ask me.
Okay, interesting. So that NDC being held on 27th March, as you mentioned, in case it goes on, you've questioned the legality. What next?
What next is to convene a proper national delegates convention.
Simple.
And if it's convened,
Yeah.
and the proper delegates, genuine delegates, and in fact that record of delegates should be in the hands of the Secretary General. You can have an election, in the rundown to elections in 2022, I was seeing some parties which are just briefcase parties, political parties, but they were able to have delegates conferences and fill up bombers with people who had been picked up from the streets. So I hope, they will not just collect people around and pretend that those are delegates. We got a proper list of delegates.
Okay, away from national politics, let's talk matters, Siaya. You're the county governor. Unfortunately, there's a notion that your involvement in national politics has swayed your focus. In fact, some of your naysayers refer to you as an absentee governor. So, James Orengo, are your political forays disenfranchising the people of Siaya County who voted?
I can tell you every week I'm in Siaya. I hold cabinet meetings in Siaya. I visit the sub-counties, the wards. Just last week, I was in 2 wards with Safaricom, where we were commissioning 2 hospitals that, in partnership with the Safaricom Foundation, we have built. We are the only county which has successfully built a stadium to completion with a tartan track without a single cent from the state. We are, and I believe
was the budget increased at a point? We saw reports about that.
What?
The Siaya, the stadium budget, was it increased at some point?
No, the budget, that was there originally, because it's to be done in phases.
Yeah.
The first phase was about, 400 odd million. And then the second phase, it went to about 800 million. And because it is a modern stadium, I invite you to go there and tell me if you can get any stadium built exclusively by the county. with a tartan track, we can have, national, international athletic, races in Siaya.
Is it complete?
It's complete. It's
Okay.
complete.
Okay.
Now, I must say and commend the national government that they now come in to complete the canopy, putting a canopy around the stadium, because we had a pavilion on one side of the stadium, and is a pavilion that has no comparison. And even when the state wanted to do the rest of the canopy, the plans they came up with, we said no. That would make this stadium look like a Juakali job. And they had to increase the money that they set aside for completion of the stadium. I believe the future is urban, rural areas are being urbanized. I take pride that in all our municipalities and in our 4 towns, we are doing bitumen ring roads, some of them which have been completed. We never had a single agro factory, except the one we had in Yala Swamp Dominion, which the owner, the investor, abandoned site. And we went to Yala Swamp and built a rice factory, which the president came, to commission. And it's producing rice. It is milling rice, packaging rice. And that rice we also use for our school feeding program in the county. If you look at the hospitals we're trying to build, and some of them which are complete, they're proper buildings with proper finishing. And I can tell you, and we can take a whole day talking about what we have done, but of course with the resources that we get from our equitable share of revenue. Now, the rest I can say is politics, but I can tell you what we have done in 3 years is a lot more than what the previous administration did in 10 years. And if you took an audit in the health sector, in the ECDs, we have done a model ECD. We are doing 2 of them, one in Bondo and one in Siaya. The one in Bondo is complete. You go and look at it, and it's like a nursery school built here in Nairobi.
Well, I hope we'll get a chance. You should invite us.
Yes, it's a modern nursery school.
Okay.
Because we were finding a lot of people who are working in Siaya were living in Kisumu because of their kids. So we said, including university lecturers, they work in Bondo, in Siaya, but because of the kids, they live in Kisumu. We were the first county to pay ECD teachers full-time, permanent and pensionable, at the stroke of the pen. 700 of them, we paid them, rather recruited them on permanent and pensionable basis with the insurance cover. In the health sector also, the health promoters, whom we call Nyamrerwa in Luo, we put, when I went there, they were earning 2,000 shillings as stipend. I increased it to 3,000 shillings, which they get regularly. We gave them uniforms. And of course, the state came later on to increase that figure by about 2,000 shillings. Now, we cannot do things without budget. But I think with the budget we have.
Okay, so you've definitely illustrated the development track record you've set in Siaya County. As we finalize on matters to do with the county, this push and pull in terms of the timely disbursement of funds. It should be the 15th of every month. That's not a reality. But even as you talk to us about that particular
and that's part
issue,
of the 10-point agenda. You are telling me that has not
yes,
been achieved?
it still hasn't been achieved.
Yeah.
Well, they'll say the fiscal space is a little bit tight, you know.
No,
But,
it's a matter of law.
oh yeah.
It's not a matter of, whether there's money or not. It's a matter of law.
Okay.
The money that is there should be dispersed in a timely manner.
Talk to me about on-source revenue in your county. How have you been able to boost it?
Our own source revenue has increased, but comparatively with the other counties, the counties are doing well. We have not done as well,
Okay.
but compared to the past, we have done very well. Now, there are two things which has made it very difficult for us to compete with the best. One, we didn't have a valuation role, which makes it possible to levy rates and properties. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that we are not collecting rates and rent in the required manner because of lack of the valuation role. It takes quite a while to come with a valuation role. We are completing that exercise in a month or two, and that should see our revenues getting up. Now, the other thing was about automation. We have not achieved 100% automation, and given 4 or 5 months, I think that process of automation would be complete.
Okay.
Yeah.
What percentage goes to recurrent vis-a-vis development expenditure in your county? And there's that issue of ghost workers as well.
Yeah, normally the revenue that we get that goes into a CRF account is about 7 to 8 billion shillings. We are only able to get to allocate about 2 billion to development, and that, in terms of comparison with other counties, does not rate us badly. Part of that money also goes to the county assembly, because they also undertakes certain developments, including building offices for members of the county assembly. Our wage bill, the ratio between our budget as against the wage bill, our wage bill is about 37.8%. Sometimes we get to 35%, which again rates us very well, because the national standard required is that the wage bill should not be more than 35% of the budget. So I don't think we're doing very badly in that regard.
You've sorted out the issue of ghost workers?
Ghost workers, I think we have worked on it very well. The crisis that we had at one time was that there was a fraudulent attempt to recruit workers in the health sector. In fact, the numbers that were involved were about 400 of health workers who were actually even deployed to health facilities. And we had a big crisis. They went to court. They reported that matter to investigative authorities. But it was determined that it was not an exercise undertaken by the County Public Service Board. It was a fraudulent exercise. It has gone to the courts, and the courts have ruled in our favor. Okay. So that matter now is neither here or there.
So if we come to Siaya, no ghost workers. That's what you're saying?
I mean, if you get ghost workers, maybe accidental 10 and 20. I don't think we have any.
Okay, as we finalize,
Yeah.
Governor, we've talked about so much, but I'll have to speculate here. What next for Governor Orengo? 2027 is just around the corner. The general elections are coming thick and fast. What have you set your sights on?
I normally don't pronounce myself for what I want to do,
Yeah.
you know, in my political life. Even when I ran for parliament for the first time when I was, 28, 29, I made the decision almost at the spur of the moment. And ever since, I tend to keep it that way. So, watch this space.
You're holding your cards close to your chest.
It works for me. It works for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Asante sana. I think that's all that we had to talk about today.
Shukran.
Looking forward to yet another conversation because a lot is developing in this governance and political space. And you being a senior governor and senior leader, it would be prudent to have your take as you perhaps inform the nation on your next steps and what the goal is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we part ways, I just want to mention that my party is owed more than 12 billion shillings by the state. And instead of depending on handouts from the state, they should be given that money. And I'm proud to say, I led a group of advocates to go and litigate that matter in the High Court and the Court of Appeal to force, at least to make a declaration and a determination of what the state owed. The state was saying, we're not owed anything. We are not entitled to any money. But the time that judgment was made about 6-7 years ago, the figure was calculated by the courts to be 4 billion. Now it's standing at 12 billion.
Is there goodwill?
If there was goodwill by President Ruto and his government, if he really valued the support that ODM has given him at his lowest time during the Gen Z demonstrations, he would just write that one check for ODM to get his money, 12 billion shillings. And is increasing every day.
And counting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let's see how that pans out. I hope you get what's owed to you as a party. Thank you so much for your time and informative discussion right here.
Thank you.
That's all we had for you. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it KTN.